Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, we're going to be talking about how the community is in an uproar. Over what? Well, over the new Season 3 seasonal policy on the healthcare tree for Diligence. And not only is it that the damage dealt was plus 15 or is plus 50%, but there's a number of other areas that people are upset about. And that's what we're going to talk about today. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up because that helps out a lot. Thanks. Do it or I'll find you. So here, we are going to show you what could maybe be a little bit of a rollback, right? But I think, to me, some of the challenges is, and I think probably the most notable one, is with the plus 15% damage dealt, when you think about bitter end, when I think about the end of a tree or the top of a tree, I think, okay, well, the policies are getting progressively better in their appropriate areas. But bitter end is basically a pure damage dealt policy. It was added in multiple seasons ago as a way to basically incur more deads, but also allow for you to deal more damage. And I look at this and I think to myself, well, how is that plus 5%, but this is plus 15%? It's times 3, and we're not at the end of the tree yet. Something there also just doesn't compute with me. But let's look at what the official recent announcement from the CoD team has to say, which was posted in the announcements channel. And this was done a couple days ago, where it says, we've received your feedback on the recent concerns regarding the policy changes and are actively investigating potential adjustments. Our team is working around the clock to finalize a solution prior to the launch of the new season. Now, keep in mind, the new season launches on the 7th of March. So as of right now, that's about 3.5, a little less, right? A little bit more than 3 days as of recording this on March 3rd. However, what stemmed this? Well, what stemmed this was a suggestion that Dark from EIS posted that has received 704 upvotes, 71 downvotes. So let's read this, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on the situation. So Dark says, please stop trying to turn this game into rock like we asked 1,000 times. The current policies need reworked. 5 mil hospital capacity for Diligence is too low. Makes everyone the size of a 100 mil player, and the length of wars will suffer from it. Now, keep in mind, if we look at, and I'm going to show you this as well. So if we look at, this is from, I think, the Dragonfall season that I'm in with this one right now. And this is what my Kingdom of 65, my account of 65. And you can see Healthcare Diligence, 20 mil cap, 25 for Reprieve, 50 mil Benevolence. You see the 5 mil, negative 20% resource healing, stamina limit bonus 50%, and same thing as well, right? Same thing here that we saw, resource healing, right? So those were consistent. But again, not everything was the same there, right? You got the plus 15% damage dealt. Again, if you looked at it in game for Diligence and Dragonfall, there was no additional damage dealt. However, you had what was a 20 mil cap for your hospital, and now it's a 5 mil cap. So not only do you get the 5 mil cap, which is a reduction of a quarter, right? It's a 300%. No, not even 3. It's like a 20. No, it's not 25. It's not. It's like 75% reduction, I guess it would be. And then you get the plus 15 damage dealt, which again was not there on the Dragonfall season. So that was just a pure add. I think. This is how it feels to me. You know what? I'm sorry. Let me finish, and let me finish reading, and then I'm going to tell you how it really feels to me. And it might be a hot take. We'll see. But I think it'll be pretty spot on. So the current policies need reworked. 50% damage dealt bonus means anyone not taking it is missing out on a massive amount of damage and stamina. Yeah, I mean, it basically kind of makes it almost a go-to at that point. It's almost like you're adding in. It's almost like you're adding in a pay-to-win skin, and the skin has a plus 15% damage dealt on it, right? It's just unfair, right? I just don't think it's right. So anyone with more troops will run out of hospital and stamina and not be able to keep fighting over that hospital capacity, leading to too much shorter wars, which none of us want. I mean, it's pretty spot on. If you have a lower hospital cap, you're not going to be able to have as many troops available to you because you're going to have to keep healing those and or potentially maybe spending shorter bursts of more resources in order to recoup the troops that you need to either heal, or unless you just say screw it and then you just kind of go the training method where you just don't care about the dads and you're just going to keep training and training. Point is that it doesn't allow for you. Also, if your hospital cap is that low, right, remember, you almost want a hospital cap to be higher because you get more troops that you can heal, not only from elixir, right, or I guess the amount that you get overall based on the total amount you have in the hospital, right? So that percentage scales for the amount you're able to heal per day. That's the easiest way to put it. Right, so just in a very simple example, if you had 1 million troops in your hospital, maybe, and I'm just giving this as a very vague, broad example, but if you have 1 million troops in your hospital, let's say you can heal 10% of that, right? So that's 100,000. If you have 10 million troops, you can heal 1 million troops a day. If you have 20 million, that's 2 million troops you can heal a day, right? So that's kind of how it scales in layman's terms. So then you get the 30% dead troops back, right? Which is greedy, right? Because remember, the ossuary used to give you 50%. So now they want you to incur more deads, and they're giving you less percentage of deads back. I mean, talk about just an absolute slap in the face of disrespect, right? It's like they Cat Williams me by baby powdering my hand, warmed it up, and then just went right across the face, right? Essentially just a quality pimp slap, except it just felt very dirty this time around. So 50% was fine, especially since no one likes bastions in the current state. With the make-way policy involved anyways, you were just giving us a reason to hate it even more. I think that's probably accurate for the most part. Revert to old policies with 50 mil cap, right? And that's the one I just showed you guys, right, from the previous season, from the Dragonfall season. Right, 25 mil cap, reprieve 20, or sorry, diligence 20, reprieve 25, benevolence 50. So people can have lasting wars, use the troops we paid for, and give us our 50% dead troops back. A season in the policies: 10 mil cap, benevolence, 7.5 reprieve, 5 mil diligence are too low, right? That's kind of what it is now, to punish players who spent a lot in the game. The 10 mil policy, benevolence, and 7.5 mil reprieve are not an option for anyone wanting to compete with damage on the field and stamina. It basically looks like you're just hoping people resource heal to fight longer, which is what we alluded to. Wars, which will just decrease the length of wars, so almost all players will have a 5 mil hospital capacity equals less war. The thing I'll say here is that the data shows, for those of you that know that I track wars and how much PvP is happening in the final zone. In the last, just to show you how egregious, how bad it is, in the last Dragonfall season, or in the current Dragonfall seasons with the accelerated final zones, the majority of KVKs for the final zone, which is supposed to be the most exciting zone, it's supposed to be the one where everyone's coming together, up to everyone's making it there, and you're having what should be the longest lasting zone fight of the KVK season. A healthy number of KVKs were decided within the first 12 hours and effortlessly within the first 24 hours. Because of the accelerated play. So yeah, I am very much a proponent right now of like, hey, look, that's okay. We tested the accelerated play. We tried it out. It's a no-go. We need to remove the accelerated play, and maybe do some fine-tuning adjustments. Maybe collect some feedback from people. And part of that was because with the accelerated play, you'll hear this from a number of kings and queens, right, that have advocated for this already, or have mentioned this, is that it almost favored the people who were on first. Because you have to think about this. If you have accelerated build and accelerated play in the final zone, the kingdoms and alliances who have the most amount of people on consistently for those first 12 to 24 hours are at an advantage, especially if you have multiple alliances. You're going to be able to build there that much faster. You're going to be able to have that much more activity on to potentially delay and slow down your opponents from building or stall them. And it allows for you to basically put your building and for you to acquire positions or advantageous positions on choke points, which can be bridges, ramps, mountain ranges, etc., and essentially kind of set up your bastions first in more forward positions, especially if you're able to kind of get past the kind of middle of the dragon zone and you can kind of make it to your opponent's opening choke, right? Coming out of their pass, or at least in an area, right? And we saw there was a bunch of bridges, right? Kind of entering into the middle dragon area from the final zone that you saw kingdoms were able to get to faster than others. And I'm not saying it happened to all of them, but a number of them it did. And that, again, I think is one of the drawbacks. It has to be super demotivating when the fact is that a lot of the open field fighting is happening when you did not have accelerated build play. You saw a massive amount of open field play that was happening before everyone was able to get to where they were able to get to building wise. And even if you opted to send your troops past the 50-yard line, in this case to your opponent's chokes, your opponent still had the replenishment advantage, right? Because they had shorter replenishment times from fighting there, going back to their city. So again, there's give and take. But however, there's not really too much of that when you have accelerated build, right? You have kind of this diminishing returns in some of these other areas. And I just have to feel like it can't feel good. And I'd love to know from you, if you were out there fighting, how did you feel about it with the old system compared to the accelerated build system that you have now? Or at least in Dragonfall, right? Which one did you favor? These are just my thoughts on it, and also based on some of the feedback that I've seen. So this game is in a fragile state. Don't force more people to leave the game with all these negative changes. Free healing is one of the staples of this game, which includes hospital capacity, allowing for constant healing and fighting to make the game fun. Please stop removing things like healing or capacity, which limit fighting, and if anything, give us more. I more or less agree there. I think the first step here is we need to revert it to how it was in Dragonfall, and I think that's the first step. I think we need to remove the accelerated building and just assess. Remove it, assess, right? Get feedback, hear what people are saying. I think it's okay to test these things, right? Nothing against testing. But then after you do it for a season, you have a number of KVKs. I mean, at this point, you've had 20 KVKs that have ran with the accelerated play in the FZ. Ask people for their feedback. Now, I want to point out that I hope accelerated is not in season 3, because if it is, I think it's going to be pretty disappointing, respectfully. So now let me get to what I think my take is here at the end, right? After we've read everything. Again, I think for the most part, this suggestion is spot on. I do think that there could have been maybe some more stats, maybe a little bit more description and detail provided in certain areas just to give more valuable examples aside from what was given. But I do think for the most part, I do agree with it. So that's why I ended up voting for this. I'll also include a link to this suggestion in the pinned comment description down below for those of you that would like to either upvote or downvote if you agree or disagree. But where my final take on this is part of me feels like that from these changes, the game is just doing things more and more and more to incur more overall dead troops. And to me, the biggest problem right now is that, as far as if I was to just say like, hey, what's the number one priority challenge in KVK? And there's a number of them. But as it pertains to changes like this, to me, it's the fact that we do not have a consistent amount of long-lasting wars and fights. A lot of the PvP, which is supposed to be in this crescendo final zone where everyone culminates, on average is lasting a couple days. And that's probably being generous, right, across the last number of seasons. Now, there have been some outliers where some PvP has lasted more than a couple days. But on average, we're talking 1 to 2 days, maybe 1 to 3 if you really want to just give them a little. And that's just not enough. And I'm not saying that it needs to last 3 or 4 weeks, even though that could be cool. But I think we need to at least aim for somewhere around a week minimum. And I say this because you have to think about all of the players that are getting on at different times throughout the day. Maybe some people don't have a lot of time during the week, but they have a lot of time during the weekend. So that's why, at minimum, to me, I feel like I'd love to see wars get to a point where, at minimum, they're lasting around 7 days, if not maybe a little more, but at least around 7 days. And that's just because you give people a full 7-day week cycle to potentially participate. Some, of course, will participate more and less than others, but you're giving up to everyone. And that's really what it's about for me, inclusion. How can we get as many players in the game to participate as possible? When you think about the fact that you limit players from their participation because we do not have long-lasting wars, and you're not thinking about the weekly, day-to-day cycle of an individual's real-life duties, responsibilities, and things they may need to be taken care of, and will have different variations of time available throughout a week. To me, it's a no-brainer. Like, this just seems like such a missed opportunity. And you then have to think about what kind of state of mind, what kind of motivation or demotivation or a feeling of unfulfillment, like they're let down because the war lasted 24 hours or a day or two, and they were going to be showing up on day 3, and maybe they had day 3, 4, 5, 6 all available, or maybe the first couple of days were in the week, but the weekend was coming up, and they were just had carved it out to where they could be on for 12 hours a day, Saturday, Sunday, like whatever it is. Missing out on that and just not taking that into account, to me, as a developer, is such a missed opportunity. You have such a chance to not only see potentially more money spent because of longer lasting wars, but a lot more engagement and a lot more positivity from that, a lot more sense of fulfillment from an individual who doesn't feel like they were shafted because they weren't able to be on in the first 12 hours the moment that the passes were opened, right? Or they didn't want to lose sleep and play from 1 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's just multiple areas here to consider. I, of course, would love to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below. This is my take, my opinion. And yeah, I'm curious to see what others feel, if you align a little bit with some of my views, or if you have a different view, how you feel about the current policy changes, and do you agree with reverting? Let me know your thoughts. That's it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.